the aim is what he calls self-leadership. Can we have self take the lead in the system instead of these extreme protective parts? And so you can imagine what life would be like if in every situation you were able to show up with calmness and confidence and courage and compassion and curiosity and all of these C words. But that is the promise of internal family systems.
Welcome to The Art of Quality in Attention, a podcast that explores the ways in which master practitioners attend to their craft. The quality of attention plays a huge role in how we perceive and experience the world. By exploring how master practitioners pay attention in the context of their work, we hope to shed light on the inner game of seeking quality in work and life. I'm your host, William Oliver. As our investigations into the nature of quality have taken their course over the years, I have come to much more deeply appreciate the importance of the relationship between the outer quality we see and observe in the world and the inner states of the practitioners responsible for bringing this quality into the world. In short, I have become much more interested in the inner experience of practitioners of a craft. To help explore this question, we have our guest this week, Justin Wilford, who's someone I've experienced as having a deep sense of what inner quality feels and looks like and how one might go about inviting more of it into our lives. Justin is an internal family systems, or IFS, practitioner. This is a modality I have benefited from myself in really meaningful ways over the last year and a half. In my frequent conversations with Justin, I see how the practice of IFS, or internal family systems, has shaped his own life and how deeply it has informed his own practice of introspection, leading to what he describes as a more harmonious life. I am deeply excited for you, dear listener, to learn more about Justin's experience of life and how he goes about his practice of helping others find more inner quality. Justin, I am so happy to be here with you today.
Me too. Like, we just got to spend a lot of wonderful time together.
We have, and I feel that is a particular aspect of this privilege, is that we have had more time than we've ever had together in person. And I imagine that aspects of that experience will find their way into my questions and into the conversation. So that makes this just so delightful and exciting. And I feel inspired to begin by asking you a little about your journey into your practice of internal family systems. As a friend, I experience this practice as so interwoven into the fabric of your life, and it's such a delight to experience and to witness and to learn from you. And so, how did this arise? How did this practice come to play such a central role in your life, at least as it is today?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Where did it start? Trying to trace the very beginning. I guess to make the story, well, I would have to include in 2011, our 4-year-old son was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and I had just graduated with a PhD and was putting the finishing touches on turning my dissertation into a book. It was being published by a good university press, and I was going out on the job market and ready to become a tenure track professor. And then he was diagnosed, and that changed everything. I had to pull off the job market, and then I lost all interest in what I had dedicated the last, many years of my life to. And so that was probably the beginning, because had that not occurred, I would probably be a miserable academic at this point in my life. Just like I look at my friends, the people who I was in grad school then with, and then later, and I am so grateful that I am not in academia anymore. But so that was probably one big moment. And then the next came, I then pursued another PhD because I didn't know what else to do. I was like, I'd only been in universities my entire life. And so I figured I had to find just a better way to be in the university system. And so I then got a PhD in public health, and with a focus on mental health program design and evaluation. And so I started Vipassana meditation in 2015, a daily practice, because I was a research assistant on a couple of different studies that were looking at the effect of meditation on biomarkers. And that was a life-changing practice for several years. And then eventually I heard about internal family systems, and it was such a boring clinical name, and it was never described to me in any sufficient detail. And so I would hear about it, and then I didn't think it had anything to do with with the projects and research that I was working on. And then one day I finally heard an interview with Dick Schwartz, the creator of Internal Family Systems, and he did a demo of IFS on this interview with the interviewer, and it was like nothing I had ever heard before. It blew my mind. I said, this is fascinating. And it fit with a lot of the things that I was exploring in my own meditation practice. And also at that time, this is probably like 2018-ish, was starting to hear of some high-level meditation teachers who were going into therapy. And this was kind of like a bombshell, like, oh, meditation isn't going to fix everything. It's not the panacea. It's not just the one silver bullet. Like, these high-level meditation teachers also like have to work on their own shit and have to go into therapy. And so that led me into, it just all kind of fit together at the same time. And I became deeply interested in IFS. And it's just an aspect of, I guess, the way my parts are configured, that when I become interested in something, I just have to follow it all the way down. And so I got trained, and I took as many trainings as I possibly could, with the intention of designing mental health programs around IFS. But I fell in love with it so much that eventually I left academia and became an IFS practitioner of my own. I did not go on to the track of becoming a licensed therapist, because after 2 PhDs, I was like, I'm not going back to school. Like, I'm just not going to do it. So I am an IFS practitioner today, and I've been through IFS level 1 and 2 and many other trainings. But I guess that's my like biographical in to IFS.
Well, there are a few reasons I'm so interested in your practice, in your experience, and one of those is just the context of this entire project, the art of quality, that is, and this question. Increasingly, our investigations of quality as manifest in the world, I find myself turning back to the inner dimension of that outer experience, or whatever we can witness in the outer world, and just taking it at the level of the human being. That inner quality, I found, seems to matter more and more. The quality of our capacity to attend, to perceive what's real. So I want to bring that in, and no doubt that, that there's so much to explore around all of that. Just before that, for those who are not familiar with internal family systems as a therapeutic practice, what can you share that's going to help them understand, and really all of us, help us understand what we're actually talking about here as you experience it?
Yeah. One of the hardest things about internal family systems, or explaining it, is that the name is boring, clinical, and doesn't actually describe what the process is or what the transformation is. It makes sense in historical context because Dick Schwartz was a structural family systems therapist, and that's how he came in to discover internal family systems. And so the name makes sense in a historical context. I'll describe it really briefly, but then I'll get into just like the real kind of core nuts and bolts of IFS. So Dick Schwartz, as a structural family systems therapist, he wanted to show the world that family systems therapy is all that we need. And, the idea behind structural family systems therapy is that we don't need to do this talk therapy. We don't need to analyze or do this, what he calls intrapsychic work. That what we need is to get the family unit to work together, mom, dad, brother, sister, to communicate openly, honestly, to learn how to resolve their conflicts, to learn about each other's roles in the family system. And so this is what he did. And he was a true believer, and he wanted to show the world this is all we need. And so he and a colleague went into an eating disorders clinic to show that structural family systems, if it works here, it will work anywhere. And they went in and they threw the family systems toolbox at these patients and their families. And to their dismay, after a few months, they look at the data and it didn't have the effect that they had hoped. And so for the first time in his career, Schwartz went around and asked the patients what was happening inside for them when they ate or they didn't eat or they cut themselves or whatever the case is. And they started to talk about parts. He had no framework for this. He didn't have a theoretical approach for it. He was just recording what they said. And he went from patient to patient, and they would talk about parts that would get highly activated, parts that would try to soothe through food or self-harm, parts that would be hypercritical, parts that would numb out. And this was the beginning of internal family systems for him, because he begins to see in his clients outside of the clinic, in his colleagues, with his wife, with himself, that everybody has parts, that parts are the natural state of the human mind. That if we just slow down for a minute, we'll see that, a part of me wants this, another part of me wants that. Or if you've ever had the experience of saying or doing something where you think, what got into me? I don't know who did that. Or I can't believe that I said that. That's a part that is usually repressed, but then lashed out. And so he starts to see, this is the natural state of the human mind. He calls it inner multiplicity. And so he has that big epiphany. And then the second epiphany he has is, I can still do family systems therapy, but instead of doing it with mom, dad, brother, sister, I'm going to do it internally with these parts. Can I get parts to resolve their conflicts? Can I get parts to communicate openly and honestly? And so this is where the name internal family systems comes from. He just, at the beginning, it was like, okay, I can still do family systems therapy, but I'm doing it internally with these parts. And so that's where the name comes from. But he quickly sees that there is something in the system that is not a part, and this is what transforms internal family systems. This is what makes it, in my opinion, the most powerful psychotherapeutic practice, but also a spiritual practice. He begins to see, as he does this work, and he can ask the patients, find the part of you that wants to eat or cut, and they'd be able to find it in their chest or stomach or head or wherever. And he would ask them, okay, how do you feel toward that part? And they would say, at the beginning, they would say things like, well, I hate that part. I'm scared of it. And so he would ask them to notice that's another part that hates it or is scared, and then bring those parts out and let's have them talk. And this is family systems therapy, right? What does this part want to say? How does this part want to respond? Other parts would come in as well. And over time, he would begin to see that as parts got to speak and be heard, they would begin to relax. And after a month or two of doing this work with the same clients, he would be able to ask, okay, today, find that part that wants to eat or cut. And how are you feeling toward that part today? And the patients would say, well, today I'm feeling, or after a few months, they would say, today I'm feeling curious toward that part. I'm feeling compassionate toward that part. And he would say, well, what part is this that feels curious or compassionate? And they would say, it doesn't feel like a part. It feels like the real me. It feels like my true self. And as a secular academic, at first he thought, I don't even know what that means. There's no true self. Everything's got to be a part inside. But he kept seeing this time and time again as parts would get to speak and be heard over time. They would relax back and something else would emerge that had these C word qualities. He ends up giving them these 8 C words: that calmness, compassion, curiosity, confidence, courage, connectedness, clarity, and creativity. And that these qualities would just emerge kind of whole. And he didn't teach them how to do this. He wasn't modeling this for them. He wasn't trying to have these qualities come out, but they would start to emerge. And he gives these C words, or the source of these C words, he calls this the self, the capital S self, because that's what his clients would call it. This is my true self. This is the real me. And the analogy that he gives it, he says, this self is like the sun behind the clouds. And the clouds are our impulsive parts, our controlling, managing parts, our wounded, young, exile parts. These are all the clouds covering up the sun. And that when these parts get to speak and be heard, they get to see that they're not the only ones in the system. They don't have to work so hard. They begin to relax back. These clouds ease back and the sun just shines through. And so this self is not something that we need to work up, that we need to effort for, or that it's always there. It's waiting to come through. And as these parts feel safe enough, they relax back and the sun just shines. And so he sees in that first year of doing this exploration into internal family systems, he sees, this is the aim of this work. The aim is what he calls self-leadership. Can we have self take the lead in the system instead of these extreme protective parts? And so you can imagine what life would be like if in every situation you were able to show up with calmness and confidence and courage and compassion and curiosity and all of these C words. But that is the promise of internal family systems, that we have this, for lack of a better term, it's a spiritual life force. We call it the self, but we have it here full, whole. It doesn't need anything. We don't need to tweak it. We don't need to work it up. And that if we can work with our parts on a regular basis to feel safe, to feel connected with self, to feel connected with each other, then these parts begin to relax back and that self takes the lead in our lives. So that's my description of IFS.
And what I'm seeing in that is this feels distinct to a lot of modern self-help culture, coaching culture, let's say goals-based work that's very prevalent, where there can be, I feel, a subtle violence to this need, this imperative to be better and do better, and let's, to use a metaphor, let's plant the tree in some new soil. Whereas what I'm hearing from you, and as I've experienced directly in IFS practice I do with a wonderful human being by the name of James LeBlanc. I've worked with him it's been a year, so I'm it's very early days for me, but that I've noticed, and it's alive in his practice as well, is this idea of unfoldment, that there's a presupposition, or there's the assumption of a pre-existing wholeness that feels like a very powerful place to start. It feels real. It feels true to me. That there may be a lot of clouds to work through, but there is something in all of us that one could characterize as an innate capacity to shine and be present, and in a kind of loving awareness.
Yeah. Manifestation is another term, when you're talking about the goal-based self-help thing, manifest or the vision boards or the affirmations. And Yeah, in this, what IFS has shown me is like all of that stuff is coming from just another protective part that does not feel safe. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love about this work. It's like, oh, we can just start to relax here. Like we can just start to go to the parts that don't feel safe, that need to protect, that need to get big. And, in IFS, well, one thing we learn in IFS training early on is that self doesn't have an agenda. Self, or if self has an agenda, it's love. And that's it. So self isn't even going in trying to heal, trying to fix or solve. It's just here with this just compassionate witnessing, like, oh, I see how scared you are. I see how angry you are. I see how, walled off you are. And I just want to know more. And I'm just here with no expectations, only love. And it's in that agendaless, compassionate love that these parts begin to soften. And then we can start to do the deeper work.
How has your experience been of these parts softening? What has that been like over the years? And what impact has that had on the quality of your life?
I remember one of the first practices I started, because at the same time that I was getting into IFS, I was starting to get into something called authentic relating, which is closely related to circling for any listeners who know these practices. And so I was also starting to develop some kind of relational language. And so I remember in my relationship with my wife and my kids, I would start to just speak for my parts. And this was like not trying to change them, not trying to do anything. But so if I notice, I remember I would get into conflicts with my daughter, who we paid an allowance for every week. But a part of that allowance was for, or chores, was to empty the dishwasher. And she would wait till the very last minute. She wouldn't, it would be like 9:00 at night. And it's like, we need the dishes to be unloaded. And I had parts that would get just like so angry, and then I remember I would just speak for this part. Like, I'm noticing this clenching in my chest. I'm noticing that there's a part here that's really upset. And then as I started to just talk about this part, then I remember there's one night I was like, oh, and this part is protecting another part that feels helpless because there's nothing I can do to make you unload the dishes. And it was, so those practices, like, oh, I'm starting to see the levels of what's coming into my relationship with my daughter or my wife, my son. And, so that's even outside of the one-on-one IFS therapeutic work that I was doing. It was just those moments of like, oh, there's a part here that wants to hide, or there's a part here that feels helpless. And I can say that work really quickly transformed my life. It was like, wow, just enough to unblend from parts. So blending and unblending, these are terms that we use in IFS that we're normally blended with our parts. As we move through the day, we just have protective, wounded parts that just blend. And the work in IFS is to unblend from these parts. And as we unblend, now there's room for self. And so just a simple practice of speaking for a part, of going from, I'm so angry right now that this dishwasher has not been unloaded, to, oh, I'm noticing a part of me that's really upset about the dishwasher. Yeah, he like this boy. Yeah. And then, oh, wow. Yeah. And then he's protecting another part that feels helpless. It just there's nothing that can be done here. And boom, now I have some self. Now I have some calmness. I have some curiosity. So now I can ask my daughters, like, what's happening for you? That, we talked about the dishes 5 hours ago, and so now everything calms down. The temperature goes down, and now we can actually get somewhere. Yeah.
I can say that this precise mechanism that you're describing I experienced that for the first time in Well, let's say I'd done some IFS work in the context of these inner relationships and parts, and started mapping my own parts. But what came up when you were sharing that was in my relationship with my wife. I distinctly remember last November, as after a period of really a difficult few months, our son, it was a first year of life with a little boy that came into our life, Gustav. And I think we were exhausted and were struggling to communicate. And that experience, that first moment of where this possibility entered the room of, oh, I'm not going to act out my anger or my frustration, I'm going to speak for a part, felt like such a wild unlock. And wow. I just feel the relief of that shift that is required. You know, we still get it wrong plenty of the time. And spend a good chunk of our lives blending around, stumbling around in the blend.
But I wish that I had these practices when our kids were that age. Like it was, I mean, it's such a challenging time. And so for you to have not just the practice, but now like the ability to slow down and to at least notice, oh boy, there's a part here. Yeah.
It's been such a gift. And I'm curious to ask you if the process begins with this experience of what you characterized as unblending. We start to notice this inner multiplicity. We start to notice that maybe our true nature, our capacity for loving kindness and compassion and creativity and meeting the moment and vesselhood and all the good stuff that we all read about in terms of what's possible in a human lifetime, what it's possible to be like and who we can be as we get in touch with true nature. We start to notice all these clouds that get in the way of that, all these parts, and maybe start to experience how these parts arose, why they exist, what roles they're playing, what, in some sense, legitimate purpose they serve.
Oh, 100%.
However unskillful, they're doing their best. What happens as this inner landscape the relationships start to soften, listening starts to come into the room? What kind of work becomes possible? And how have you experienced that in your life and in the life of your patients, let's say?
Wow, that's a big question.
Clients.
One of the things that I want to start or just bring to the surface is how the deeper that I got into this work, the more I could see how parts are never random. Like I have a part that's, maybe really angry at this or really withdrawn here. And that as I dive deeper into my own system, I can start to see like this is a true system. And so a system in its kind of most broadest definition is a whole made up of parts where each part has a functional position in relation to the other parts. Like it's not random. It's not just a bag of jelly beans, it's like everything here has a functional position. And so as we get to meet a protector part, we get to see, that part might be polarized with another part in the system. Like a common polarization is, to have one part that gets really anxious or afraid and rings the alarm bell, and another part that wants to be calm or depressed or go in the opposite direction. And so we have parts that are polarized in the system, and they have a functional position, and each feels like if they don't fight like hell, the other one's going to take over. And so in this work, we can start to help these parts see like, hey, we're all on the same team, and there's a big self here that can take the lead. So the big step for me was really beginning to, because this is taught in the IFS trainings, but to really feel it and see it in my own system, like, wow, that manager part is protecting a younger, what we call an exile part. These are young, wounded parts that carry a lot of vulnerable feelings, and they get locked away in the system. And we can see how, oh boy, I've got layers of protectors before I get to this exile. These protectors are fighting each other. These protectors are allies. So to really start to see that everything in our internal world has a functional position, and not in a engineering mathematical way, but in a real relational way. In that way, it is kind of like a family. I don't love the term family because for me, I think about a mom, dad, brother, sister. But it is a large relational unit. So as we begin to do this work, what I see in my clients, what I've seen in myself, is that as we get deeper into the system, we work with these protectors. They start to trust self, which I will pause for a moment because this is a major step in the process, is that as a protector part gets to know self, like this is maybe the most important thing in IFS work and IFS land. Everybody puts the focus on healing exiles. These are the young parts carrying all the vulnerability and the trauma. That's a big deal. Yes. But I think just as big of a deal, if not even a bigger deal, is when we're just working with the protector part. Let's say I have a part that has a lot of anxiety. He's really afraid that this relationship's going to fall apart, or this project's not going to work, or whatever the case is. And he's really activated. He's ringing the alarm bell, and my IFS therapist can help me unblend from him. I start to see him. I now have compassion for him. And then she will ask me, does he know that you're there? Does this anxious protector, does he know that you're here? And whenever I've been asked that question, it's like, oh no, this part doesn't know that I'm here. No, he doesn't know. Okay. Ask him if he can turn around so that he can see you. And in this moment, 9 times out of 10 for me and 9 times out of 10 for my clients, when a part turns around to see self, it's like a spiritual experience. It's like awe. It's like, holy shit, I did not realize there was this, radiant divine light full of love that was just here for me. And so that is a major moment in this work, is when parts turn around and see self and start to connect with self. And immediately it's like, oh, I'm not alone here. Now, it's not always the most pleasant experience, because sometimes parts will say, where have you been? This is amazing, but where have you been? Where were you back then when things sucked? And so there's some work that we need to do there, and I'm happy to go in that direction as well. But that is a major step, when parts can start to feel self. And then there's a move where we can invite the part to let in the light or the warmth or the vibration of self. And when parts feel safe enough to do that, it's a game changer. Like, oh, and then I can ask the client, or my therapist could ask me, how is that part responding to your light or to your warmth or vibration or whatever? And for me and 99% of my clients, it will be, oh, this part is just softening. Oh, he's just, he's taken a deep breath for the first time. Oh my God. And so that's a big step in the process. And then that's building trust with parts. And then parts will let us go deeper to the younger parts that they're protecting, the 5-year-old part, the 3-year-old part that they're protecting. And then we can do that deeper work. But what I see unfolding as this work goes on and it starts to take root in the system is that the relationships in people's lives are the first thing. I mean, they'll just, when I have a new client and they'll ask, how do I know, or how will I know if this works? I'll say, your wife or your husband or significant other, they will be the first to notice. And so you just check in with them. And it's true that, that they're the first. Like, I remember when my wife, when I first began to do this work, took a few months of really doing this work intently. But I remember her saying, like, you're just less of an asshole. Like, oh, cool. Right on. But better than that, a year ago or so, we were on a vacation together and we were doing some kind of deep, authentic relating stuff. And one of the questions, I don't remember exactly what it was, but something along the lines of like, how have I changed over the years? And she said, the thing that I've seen about you is that you've just become more you. You've just become more you. And so that, to me, is the core of this work. Like, you just become more of who you truly are.
It reminds me of Ram Dass tells a story of in his journey of getting kicked out of Harvard and going on the yogi trail in India and all these incredible sort of phases of his life that he experienced as very distinct. And he ends up, I think, in the 80s with a bunch of old Harvard colleagues, and they're like, you haven't changed a bit. and he's sort of conflicted. He's like, oh God, no, but well, actually maybe they, some people saw me for who I was and saw me for my beauty. And maybe that's just what's here in the room now. So I don't know, but that was my read on the joke, at least. Yeah.
And becoming who we truly are is not, and this is important because this can, at the beginning for a lot of people, there's an assumption that, if the clouds are blocking the sun, then we just need to get rid of the clouds. And so we just have sun and that's it. But actually, the clouds are not just parts, they're parts carrying burdens and parts that have been pushed into extreme roles. And so parts are not their burdens and parts are not the extreme roles that they've been pushed into. And so this work is really liberating these parts from the burdens and those extreme roles so that parts can take on the roles that they were born for, that they truly were meant to serve. And so to become who we truly are doesn't mean we're all just self. Like maybe there are some gurus sitting in a cave somewhere who have 100% self and they're just in meditative repose and it's like, good on them. That's not my path. What I get really excited about is parts having self too. And this is kind of a side note, parts have parts and parts have self as well. It's like a fractal going all the way down. But as these parts connect with self, they can start to let go of the burdens. They can start to step into the roles that they were meant for. And then these parts are what bring our uniqueness, our like unique mosaic into the world. And so we have the sun and the clouds analogy. The other analogy that I love is the orchestra and the conductor, that before doing this work, it's like we have an orchestra and all of the musicians are faced in different directions, playing totally different sheet music at different tempos, different keys. It's just a cacophony. And they're like, one is trying to play louder than the other. And so we're slowly going around the conductor self tapping each musician on the shoulder saying, hey, like there's a conductor here. Like you don't need to work so hard. You don't need to play this song so hard. And there's a common song that we can all play together. And so we're just doing this work slowly going around the orchestra, each musician. And, eventually as we do this work, like the musicians are all starting to face the same direction, starting to play the same sheet music, starting to fall into harmony. And why I love this analogy is that it shows us that without parts, there's no music. The aim is not total self. Like no one wants to just go see a conductor unless it's that Philip Glass piece where he just, sits there. But like we want,
is that the minutes of silence? Or yeah.
Right. That's full self. I think that's what Glass was going for there. But we want the music, and the other thing that this analogy can give us as well is that once we are in the process of this IFS work and we have something that sounds pretty good going on in our lives, like, okay, we're playing our song. The way we can tap into parts is by just listening for the disharmony, listening for, oh, that third violinist is out of key. That third violinist is the wrong tempo or coming in at the wrong time. And so then that's how we know, okay, that's the part that needs my attention. And then we can do a little bit of work with that part. And then that part can then fall back into harmony. And so this is another question that I'll get is like, well, what happens to parts after we connect and they unburden all the stuff that's like, they're still here. We don't hear them though, because you don't hear that third violinist when she is in perfect harmony. And that's our parts.
I'm struck by this, what you articulated in this, the training of a disposition to listen for the disharmony. Mm. And as time goes by, I find that more and more interesting, maybe as a result of my own failed attempts to crowd out the disharmony.
Right. Yeah. We have parts that is
surely there's parts that are like, surely if I just bring in so much beauty into my life, the disharmony will be squeezed into some broom covered.
Well, that's it. It's like if we can get the horn section to just play louder because they're sounding great, then we don't need to hear the strings.
We have a great horn player. He's world class. We just need to dial him up a couple notches.
More cowbell. Yes.
More cowbell. And then other people walking into the room say, this orchestra is all cowbell. Like something is not quite right here. These people, this conductor really, or maybe the conductor's out the room by then.
Oh, the conductor is doing his best, but he's like, oh man, I can't. Yeah.
This is, if whoever's banging the cowbell insists on banging it really loud, then I guess this is what we're working with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this. I love this. So helpful in my own life. And well, and it, part of what's coming up for me is this experience a couple weeks ago in a medicine ceremony. Our mutual friend's beautiful ranch south of Lisbon in Portugal, our dear friend Nick. I had this experience of a desire or the direct experience on this medicine of the futility of wanting to crowd out difficulty with beauty. I had this experience of a very real experience, I think, of a very early part that wanted to be noticed, wanted to be heard. The medicine, I think, was working through my system, offering me to put it gently, offering me an opportunity to meet what was in my body and arising in my system. And I noticed myself using practices that in some contexts are beautiful, but a loving kindness practice, a metta practice, but I experienced it more as a part trying to bargain with the pain.
Yeah.
And trying to, conditionally propose, hey, let me just bring in loving kindness. And if I can bring in the loving kindness, maybe I don't need to feel what's here with with the intensity that it's presenting.
That's high level work. Yeah, that's high level work because you are noticing what we call self-like parts or a self-like part. And these are parts that know about self. They know the qualities, the beauty, the love, the calmness. And they're like, okay, I've got my canister of love here. I've got my canister of calmness and, and I'm just going to spray this thing down.
A bucket of concrete masquerading as calmness.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And the amazing thing in this work, I did not get this, and I still don't. There's something really profound and ineffable about the spiritual power of witnessing. And that ultimately, that's what self can bring, is this compassionate witnessing. And so, yeah, our self-like parts are like, oh, we just need to pour some more love on this. We need to just spray it down with some compassion. And when self is like, I'm just here to listen and I'm just here to bear witness to what you went through. And I'm just shocked. I mean, I'm still shocked that this is so much what parts need. In fact, it is a crucial part of the healing process. Parts cannot heal unless or until they've been fully witnessed by self. There's a sense that I get in this work where even if a part doesn't say it, the energy is saying, see me and feel what it was like for me when I had to go through that thing, when I was alone at that time, when I was hurt in this way. I just need you to see me. And I still don't get why witnessing is so powerful and such a necessary part of the healing process, but it absolutely is. Yeah.
It's just beautiful. That to me is it's a worthwhile mystery to sit with and be with. The healing power of witnessing, and how that feels connected to true self, an experience of true self. It reminds me, there's a beautiful, in David Whyte's, he has this essay on friendship where he talks about a cornerstone of friendship being the capacity to witness.
Yeah.
To witness each other.
Yeah. And I'm just feeling into it. I know we've talked about we're on the same page with this sort of mystical creation story of the one becoming two, and that, like, this multiplicity at the heart of creation is about love. And I think it's about witnessing too. It's like the universe wants to be witnessed. Like, it needs to be witnessed. Like, there's something really fundamental there. Yeah.
Yes. And then for me, I'm taken back to the comedy of the self-like parts. I go back to this experience, and the joke is so present of this self-like energy coming into the room with all this supposed loving kindness and all these tools from the spiritual toolkit that the mind loves to collect. And the visual metaphor I come up with is of that energy literally trying to nail a door shut on paint. It's so not like it's so not like witnessing. It so has nothing to do with witnessing. It's I'm gonna lock you in this. Hello, dear
opposite,
pain.
yeah.
I'm gonna lock you in this broom cupboard and nail the door shut with love and kindness and I could say the medicine was so having good. None of that.
That is right. Yeah. I mean, that's what, we can say psychedelics aren't for everybody. And I have met and I've seen so many people who, have what they could describe as healing, powerful psychedelic experiences, but then in a couple months, it's all gone, but one of the benefits is that for most people, most of the time, it is going to show you what's there, whether you like it or not. And then the work afterwards is like, okay, do you have a container that helps you work with that? And most people don't. Yeah.
Most people don't. And I can speak for myself. And I'm sure many people have had this experience of discovering psychedelics without a container. And one can very quickly get lost in the illusion that we're doing, real healing work. And often over time revealing that without a container for integration, sure, we're seeing a lot, but the behavioral change isn't there. The habits, the soothing, whatever coping mechanisms have arisen, whatever parts have arisen to meet needs arising from trauma and wounding and difficulty and wherever it arises. And I feel there's something to bring in here in the hope that it's of any use is how much IFS is helping right now in the work that I'm doing with a practitioner as part of the integration process where, and this has been even unexpected to me, is in the IFS work I'm doing, I'm being guided by the practitioner I'm working with to go right back into the most difficult aspects of the trip. And there was I coming with all this, this baggage from past trips of, I say baggage, but I, for years, had this sense that integration meant amplifying the most beautiful insights from the trip. And in working through an IFS practice right now, I'm sort of, I mean, it's certainly, it's a little more difficult, at least in the short term, but the work that we're doing is exactly that. It's going into the most difficult moments and seeing if we can be present.
That's it.
In that,
and it's like
landscape.
You don't go to the dentist to be like, just focus on the teeth that are perfect. Just look at the perfect teeth.
I have one perfect one left. Can we just work on that?
And I mean, I like the analogy of the dentist because I do think that these experiences are and can be healing in and of themselves. I see it. I mean, at the end of these journeys, in the morning, it's like, oh man, I really worked through that thing, or and you can, or I can feel it. And so it's like going to the dentist where it's like, oh man, my teeth feel like I'm like clean and everything's fresh. But it's like, if you're not brushing your teeth, like we're going to be right back here next year with the same issues. Yeah.
And if we're not changing our diets, and what is it that we're eating that's contributing to the decay?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
There's the maintenance, there's the source, the inputs, there's absolutely. And I do, and it's not to knock, that even with all the lack of integration that I experienced, there were so many gifts these experiments brought into my life. But and I'm wondering if you could say more about an aspect of this practice. And it does, to me, I experience it as it's not a particularly deep critique, but it's this notion that one can end up just in this experience of fragmentation. And in the unblending, we can just habituate to, well, this is a part of me speaking and I'm going to make space for it. And all of a sudden we're almost excusing our behavior, right? With, this
Absolutely.
was just a part of me. And I don't, I see your work addressing that head on. I've seen the work of a few gifted IFS practitioners address that head on. Could you say something about that?
Yes, and you've given me an opportunity to direct people to my Substack because I have an article that addresses this exactly, because that is something that happens in a lot of IFS work. Is the therapist, the practitioner or coach will get into this sort of endless cataloging of parts, and it's like, okay, now here are all your parts. And that is absolutely not what IFS is. And the IFS level 1 training manual, clear, like the first aim is self-leadership. It's like we're here not just to catalog parts and get to know parts. Like we're here to help parts meet and connect with this capital S self, and then to develop a relationship with it so that these parts can follow self. And self can take the lead. So that is the biggest thing for me, is like, if we're not explicitly aiming for more self, for self to part connections, then we're not doing IFS. Like we're doing something else. So that would be my main response is that we need to keep the eye on the ball all the time. Like we're here for the self-to-part connection. And then there is no effort that needs to be made beyond that, because once parts meet self and connect with self, now there's a lot of techniques and there's a lot of training around supporting this relationship. But in the context of that relationship, we don't need to do anything. We don't need to coach parts. We don't need to teach them. We don't need to encourage them. Or once parts meet self, it is so real. It is just so real that there's a moment in a session when a part meets self and they really see it, and they're like, jaw drop and like, oh my God, I can't believe this is here. And I can ask a client, how is the part responding to you now? And they'll say things like, oh, it's in awe, or like its mouth is just open. And I know that at that point, it's a Jesus take the wheel. We're cooking with gas. I don't need to do it. Like now self is in the lead here. Like I can just I can just offer the next step after this, and it just flows really beautifully. So that would be my answers. It's all about this core self. Yeah. Oh, and one little point about that, just because I bring that up in the article that I write. It's like I wrote it a month or two ago for anyone who wants to check out the Substack, is that self is not all or nothing. And so if you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm not having that awe-inducing experience, it does not feel like this expansive, spiritual, divine light, that's totally okay. We can have 1% of self, and that might just be a little release of tension. That might just be the voice deepening just a bit, or the breath slowing down. Yeah.
As I listen to you, I have this experience of an embodied sense of playfulness, of calm, and I think I feel part of that's connected with what feels, as best as I can tell, true, is that we contain within ourselves the seeds of our own healing, and that, I guess I'd like to maybe bring that up in the context of a culture that's constantly telling us that you need something outside of yourself to heal, and you need a therapist, and you need years of therapy, and not that there's anything, wrong with, I've been working with a mindfulness teacher for 5 years. I'm having more fun now with him than I've ever had. I'm engaged in a number of long-term relationships, but that in my own experience doesn't invalidate this what feels real, which is that there's something inside of us that is innately already whole, and that tapping into that feels like probably one of the most, if not the most important thing we can do, provided we can get anywhere near it. And that's where I find it's such a joyful conversation to explore this with you, and in your experience over the years, is how the process of working with these clouds, working with the things that get in the way of the sun.
Yeah, well, the question of the larger culture of seeking our salvation outside or healing outside, it's got to be somewhere out there, I think it's an expression of this hermetic wisdom, as above, so below, as within, so without. Because what I find in this work is we all have parts that their deepest wounds go back to mom, dad, close family members, friends when we were young, just being able to connect with other people. And so these wounds that these young parts have are related to this break of connection, this sense of being alone or not worthy of love. And when we start to go in and meet these younger parts, what I will often hear from these young parts is like they might kind of sense self here, and they're like, okay, yeah, self is here, but you're not mom. You're not dad. And there's a sense from these young parts of just like that's not what I want. I want mom. I want dad. And so I'm just now, and this is kind of a riff, but just have an assumption of how much of this outward focused healing journey is young parts that are transferring, this need for mom and dad onto, teachers or gurus or practices or I don't know, something else. I mean, for somebody like Elon Musk, I mean, there's just like, if he can spread his seed in intergalactic space, then maybe he'll be worthy of dad's love or, something like that, but ultimately the work is internal. It's with these parts, and it takes time. When I come up to, or when I'm working with a client who has an exile part that is like, yeah, I don't want self, I want mom, I want dad, then we know the work's going to take a little bit longer. We're really going to have to go slow with this part to help the part see that actually self can give this part everything that it needs and more, and it will never go away. Mom and dad will go away. self will never go away. And so when parts really get that, when that penny drops, then parts are like, oh, wow, okay, damn. And then everything is right here.
It's fascinating to watch these dynamics play out. And to pick up on that hermetic maxim, as above, so below, as within, so without, and the power of that, the insight that holds is in the arena where my professional life unfolds. And let me speak first about the experience of our own business briefly, of as I've gotten into the practice, realizing that I'm projecting my inner world onto my outer world, and that there, for better or worse, right? That it's not to judge it. It's just to say, if we're interested, and I find myself interested in new experiences as time goes by, and less interested in just repeating these cycles of childhood experience, as safe as they feel, as safe as that dysfunction feels, as well as I know it. And I think that's a common experience for people in business or in any profession, that their outer worlds are organized, or they, and at some level we're all ultimately responsible for our lives. And this realization that, oh, whatever's going on, whatever difficulty I have in my outer life, that there's an inner source inside me that's looking to play this drama out in my outer life, so that I can, maybe witness it, experience it, and heal it. I've come to believe that.
Yeah.
And that I think the moment I realized that, my relationship with my business partner, that I unconsciously sought out someone that was very similar to my father, so that I could replay out the unfinished aspects of that experience. It's amazing, and feels like such a gift to realize that, and to start to heal it, to start to turn towards it, with the hope that something new might be possible if we turn towards it. I think a well-founded hope, a well-founded faith that's born out through experience, that new experiences are possible if we can turn towards these currents.
And then there's the reverse, where as we heal and we bring this self energy out into the world, like our relationships change, the projects that we work on change, opportunities change. So, I mean, both ways. It's not, like as above, so below, as within, so without. It's one thing I'll hear from new clients. After we do a couple of sessions, they'll say, oh, I really want my husband to do this work. I really want my wife to do this work. And I'll say, like, just wait, because as you heal, like, it's going to spread, and like that self energy is going to flow in your family. Don't suggest anything. Don't press anything. Don't just let your light shine, and it's enough.
Well,
and it is enough.
You mean to say that me coming home and over a dinner table argument telling Teresa that she needs to do more IFS is that's
right. You need to unburden your parts.
Right? You are blended right now. You are, and look at the trouble that you're causing through your blending and your lack of initiative in taking responsibility for this blending.
While my completely self-led system is here judging you.
Ruthlessly, mercilessly judging you, but I'm judging you with compassion and kindness. As I nail the door shut on the actuality of your experience. Yeah. There's another thing I'd love to bring in as we get into maybe the later phase of this conversation, is this experience, and I've experienced it in our friendship. I've experienced it in the IFS practice I'm involved in with James, is and I'll use the word, but maybe I'll try to unpack it in case it's not that useful for some people, but a verticality, I wonder if this analogy resonates with you. There's a horizontality we can experience. It's the axis of a cross. The horizontal axis being the way we relate in the world, and the experience of, let's say, psychodynamic reality, community-based reality, that experience of working through differentiation, and that verticality, that connection with true self, spirit, deeper self, whatever we might call it, soul, energy, loving, whatever. True self is a nice word, actually. And I was wondering what experiences in your life help you cultivate that experience of verticality, while I also experience you as not getting lost in that. I certainly have a long track record of getting lost in verticality. I find it very easy to travel up into undifferentiated spaciousness and bypass my way out of a thousand troubles, only for them to persistently remain and catch up with me. And while we're sitting together, in a medicine ceremony a couple of weeks ago, you had the privilege of witnessing the effectiveness of my my tendency to disappear into the vertical, into that metaphorical peaceful cave.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate this dance of the vertical and the horizontal, and who helps you with that, and how do you help yourself with that, and how do you receive help with that?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a great question. When I think about it, one thing that comes to mind is how if that verticality is not coming into my body and doesn't have a sense of then effortlessly moving into the horizontal, then I lose interest. And an example of this is, I had a 5-MeO DMT experience several months ago because I had never done it, and I found a really wonderful facilitator who I really liked. So I was like, okay, let's give this a try. And I experienced it to be like self-energy, just complete and whole and nothing but self-energy. And I remember at the end of it, I was like, that was a beautiful experience, but I'm not that interested, because like that's not the realm that I am called to live in. Like I want that self energy to flow horizontally out into my life. And so I don't have any burning desire to do 5-MeO anytime soon. I mean, it's a wonderful experience, but also in ayahuasca, I've had the experience and other psychedelic experiences. I will have these moments kind of at the peak where just sacred geometry, expansiveness, universal oneness, and a sense of like, oh, this is above my pay grade. If this is not coming out into my life, then, it's pearls before swine. Like I can't do anything with it. One thing I do feel though in these psychedelic experiences, now that I'm talking about it, one thing I do remember is that expansiveness, that hugeness of the experience does. And I've really been leaning into this in the past few years. I feel it expanding my internal system so that I can hold more, and I can hold more for my clients. I can hold more for my family and my life. So in that sense, there is something that does flow into the horizontal of like, oh, this is so big that parts can't hold on or can't contain this. And there's an expansion in my system. And so in that way, it does flow into the horizontal, but it's not something that I really seek. And so, or that I seek that often. I think that it is probably good for me to do it maybe like once, maybe twice a year. But the more common practice is going to be dance, and conscious dance, ecstatic dance is just a wonderful way to find where there's blockages, where there are parts gripping or holding on or don't trust the flow. And I can work with those parts. I can listen to those parts and build that trust in dance. And then over our time together in Scotland, so much vocal work, like that is a spiritual practice, the voice. And so I'm really excited to do more of that. So yeah, my verticality is really like, I I experience the kind of non-psychedelic verticality, and it actually psychedelic as well. Noticing parts that don't trust that vertical energy, that want to try to control it or guard it or not let it fully in, feel like it might be too much. So I'm working with these parts, and then always inviting it to flow in my body and into my relationships and into my work. Yeah.
As I feel into what is just so interesting about all this, it feels like it allows one or enables one, gives one a greater capacity for being a great friend, because we are becoming a better friend to ourselves. And as I say that, to bring in an aspect of hermetic practice and the arcanum of the hermit, there's a line that I think I shared with you the other week in Scotland from a passage in a book by Alejandro Jodorowsky, who works within the French hermetic tradition. And he has this chapter titled "If the Hermit Spoke." And he says, "Because I have helped myself, I am ready to receive help."
Oh. Because I've helped myself, I am ready to receive help. Does he follow that with, because I have helped myself, I am also ready to offer help?
I think so. I think part of the passage is about this experience of, because as a result of the inner work that translates into an experience of inner harmony, we become more of a playground to give and receive. But we become more spacious, and that's a lot of what I've experienced in our friendship. That there's a spaciousness. It's been so much fun to investigate it, among many things, that the hermetic path, as we fall further and further down that rabbit hole for who knows how long.
Yeah,
but
I totally agree.
This experience of being a friend to ourselves, translating into having the capacity to be a great friend to others.
Yeah. I mean, there's something there also about intimate relationships as well. Like as we can be a friend to ourselves, or as we can be a primary caretaker of our parts, we don't subconsciously look to our partners or our friends to be the primary caretakers of our parts. And so then, like, when I can be the primary caretaker of my parts, like I can give them what they need, then I can show up in my relationships with just presence, with a full heart, letting the relationship go where it's going to go and not needing it to go anywhere in particular. Yeah. And in intimate relationships, that is magic. I mean, my wife and I have been married over 24 years, and our relationship is better than it's ever been. And this work is absolutely responsible for it. It's like, I don't need her to take care of my young parts. And so I can show up with way more presence, with, I don't need anything from her. I get to be with her. Like, this is just joy and connection. And like, I don't need her to, validate anything. I don't need her to mother anything in me. And it's been absolutely transformative.
What a joy. I just want to bring in that an aspect of this reality, that it can be really difficult work to turn towards that which has been neglected, cut off, marginalized, that it can be painstaking work, though it need be. And I think on some level it might be as hard as we make it.
Oh, it was for me. Yeah, no, I'm just as you're saying that, I'm remembering the years of, there's a lot of pain inside. Yeah. A lot of parts that needed a lot of witnessing and a lot of care. Yeah.
And in the early years when self, perhaps we are alienated from self. It's there. It's real. It's always there, but there's a whole bunch of clutter that gets in the way of it being felt, and the self's capacity or the capacity any parts have to be witnessed by self, which is also helped by having great friends and this experience of fellowship.
Amen.
As we walk the path side by side. Thank you, Justin, for being a great friend.
Thank you, Willy. Oh my God. No, I mean, it feels, cause I think we have known each other less than a year, but it feels like way longer than that to me. I mean, it's just such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure to get to know you ever more deeply. Yeah.
It's so much fun. I'm so grateful for your presence and your willingness to share this experience that you've had, that I've had the joy of witnessing firsthand in many conversations and experiences together.
Oh, absolutely. I will never forget the absolutely joyous, wonderful time we had in Scotland, but also on the hilltop in Portugal. Both of those nights were so special.
Yes. Oh my God. I think special is a word that I can use now. But I think, in full disclosure for anyone that was not on the hilltop, I had a pretty hard time. Yeah. And I'm fresh out of a hard time.
You danced with it though. It was like you were not taken out by it. Like you really flowed and you danced with it. Yeah.
And I guess they say that the medicine never gives you more than you can handle. But I'm pretty sure I got close.
Right up to the edge.
I got right up. Maybe the medicine really, I'm sure it certainly knows more than me about what it's up to. But it certainly danced me, right up to the edge, and that is proving to be a great gift, that amid the difficulty, there's then a chance to find real love and real compassion and real friendship. And as you were saying, is that these experiences unfold over time and we can integrate them or not. And, but really I'm so with you on this sense that verticality, as we're incarnated as human beings, that there's a big aspect to life that is horizontal. That is, how could it not be overwhelmingly relational, and that any experiences of spirit or true self or touching these depths is really interesting to the extent that it impacts the way we live day by day in our personal and professional relationships. And recognizing just how humbling that is. Right?
Absolutely. That's the juice though. That is the juice.
Well, it is, and maybe to this one quote that I wrote down ahead of the few weeks we had together that maybe we can finish with, and finish this, let's say, this part of our conversation that I imagine will go on for many years to come. And it's a quote by Richard Rohr. He says, "It is the so-called unworthy emotions that ask the most of us and teach us the most." And I'll follow up. I am paraphrasing him slightly, but these are also most of Richard. This is a slightly spicier version of the quote that I feel compelled to, as the cherry on the cake here. Let us be the little ones who know they're no big deal and who recognize they're full of shit, and quite happy being no big deal, and quite content acknowledging that they're full of shit.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Justin.
Oh, thank you, Willy. What a blessing.
Thank you for listening to our conversation today. For more resources on the subject of quality across the domains of business, investing, psychology and art, please visit our website, theartofquality.co.